Hey, you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hit the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. And you let her go. So, now that we've got my singing out of the way, and that sort of set the tone for this video, I'm gonna go through my first ever relationship, really my only real romantic relationship in a sense. Sort of how I got into it, what it was like, how she'd make me feel, the things we'd do together, the shit she'd say to me, and also how it advanced, how it wound up ending pretty quickly after only 4 months or so, and my subsequent depression afterwards that I've spoken about briefly in the last video I did, and sort of also just I want to go over some of my takeaways, what I kind of learned from this experience, how I've advanced as a person in some regards from it. So first things first, we're gonna need a bit of pretext. Um, I was 21 at the time that I got on the dating apps. It was April of last year, 2025. Just got my first job at the time. I guess I was feeling a bit experimental. I was desperate to lose my virginity, as I said in the other videos. And uh, at that time, as I've said before, I was basically isolated for since I was like 14. I was like a hikikomori, and I didn't approach women, but I really didn't interact with them besides my female family members that much at all, really. There was like this adult high school type of thing that I went to, and I never really asked any girls or women out there, but at the same time, it was a low population school. um a lot of the women there were adults, so they were 5, 10, 15 years older than me. The selection that was there, some of them were kind of well, they had like mental issues, or they were like a bit like dysgenic in some regards, maybe, and that's probably a part of the reason why they never finished high school and why they were coming back as an adult. But I was there as a teenager because I really didn't jive too well with regular school. But most of the people there were a bit older in age, and I did get along with I guess a couple of the guys there, but that didn't really last. It was never a friendship. We just made some small talk because we both smoked together and stuff, and he'd talk to me because he'd bum cigarettes off me and so forth. Anyway, I decided to get on Tinder. I got on Tinder, and that's the only app that ever worked for me, by the way. Hinge and Bumble, they didn't do shit. I think it's just because I'm in a low populous area, so that's the only like the biggest one is where there's like enough women that like a few of them might go for me, I think. But anyway, it took about a month for me to get my first hookup sort of thing, and I didn't really know if it was going to be a hookup or not. I thought maybe it would just be like a date, but also it was at her house. You see, I was quite naive at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to talk to women. Um, I didn't know like if there was like a formula, if I had to like how much I had to prepare for this. It was kind of intimidating. But anyway, that wound up being a bit of a disaster. As I said, she was a native woman that lived not too far away from me, and I did go to her house, and I kind of lost my virginity that day, but even that's sort of debatable. Okay, it's like you know, that was that was a demoralizing experience for sure. But I don't want to go into that. This is about my relationship, right? So That experience left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But I didn't give up. Okay, I was determined because I felt like I didn't really lose my virginity that day, so I had to persevere. I had to persevere and keep it coming, okay? I needed to keep putting the effort in, and the next month or so, it's not like I wasn't getting the occasional match or like or something, but, some of them, they were like obese, or they were like white women, but you see, I never managed to ever get a white woman to meet me from any of the apps, any of the anything. They some of them will match with me, some of them will talk to me for like a week or two at most, but there's only it's only ever been an ethnic woman of some variety that's actually committed to meeting me, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. I have my theories and guesses, but anyway, about a month goes by. I think I swiped on this Chinese woman first, and she very quickly liked me back, and we matched. And from this point forwards, we're gonna start calling her Chang. The Chinese girl is now Chang. So Chang and me start hitting it off, kind of. We go back and forth for I'd say 4 or 5 days probably before we meet, and I can't remember everything we were saying to each other, but for the most part, it was sort of the basic shit, like our occupations, what colleges we were going to or were going to go to, like what kind of movies we liked. I would be like, oh, like what Chinese movie should I watch? Maybe I saw only one of them, stuff like that. And then I think I did say something about meeting her sometime soon, but I don't think we had a set date yet when she showed up at my door. So we're gonna have to go into when the first meeting kind of. It was one afternoon. I think it was June 21st, something like that. I was chilling, and she just messages me on Tinder suddenly that she's out and about in her car, and she's thirsty, and she wants water. Now, I I didn't really know how to react at first, but I was like, well, why can't you go to the store and get like a bottle of water or something? It's like $2. And she was like, no, I'm in a rush. I can't go do that right now. I have to go to some kind of thing. I have this woman I have to attend a thing for or something, and it would be much easier if I could just drop by your place and get a bottle of water, actually. So I'm like, okay, okay, this is my address. And literally within like 5 minutes, she's out in front of my front door, like her car is parked. This little Veloster, Hyundai Veloster. And messaging me on Tinder, like, hurry, hurry, I need the water now. So, like, I'm rushing to my sink to, like, fill up one of my own water bottles with some tap water. And like I kind of run out to go see her. I'm nervous, obviously, but it was only like a brief, I'd say maybe a 2 minute interaction. Okay, she basically said I was handsome. She said, "Oh, you're tall, you're handsome, you look so good, and I have to get somewhere real quick, so I can't really talk right now. But how about we see each other later tonight? Later tonight, we should go to the park or something together." And I agreed to that. I was like, sure, sure. Um, and so I kind of like nervously like passed her the water bottle and just walked back in my house. So right off the bat, this is kind of like a situation that you'd expect to see in like a manga, in like an anime or something, where a woman just like pops into this random loser's life. But that's really how it felt. That's really basically what happened in this case. Um, and it took me a couple months of being on Tinder, but at least So it's not like it was out of nowhere, but still, it was like an abrupt kind of thing, the way that she just sort of materialized into my life. I wasn't really expecting that. And so I prepare for this night out. I am feeling nervous, obviously. Like, I've never been on like a real date before. I had this like failed hookup, but I didn't know how I'd do on a date. I didn't know what to say to a woman yet. Um, I figured it was going to be awkward. It was going to be kind of weird. But anyways, I prepare. She told me something like she'd be back in 2 or 3 hours. I think it was going to be nighttime, and we were going to head to this kind of like a park. It's not an amusement park, just like a walking park, and um, yeah, like it's like a 10-minute drive away from my house. So she shows up at the expected time, and the car ride there to the park, it was like 7, 8, 9 minutes, something like that, and it was awkward. Um, it was not just the nervousness of like I'm in this random woman's car for the first time, but it was also like she had issues understanding my English, and I had issues understanding her English because I was not in the front seat. I was in the passenger seat, and she had music going on. So I was trying to like get the ball rolling and start this conversation with her in the car, like off the bat, to sort of just to make sure like it wasn't awkward, like an awkward ride there. But that didn't work out so well. I wound up just becoming kind of quiet like halfway through because she couldn't really understand me too well, and vice versa. And this is also, by the way, something that would become kind of the norm as we go on into into our routine sort of thing, when she would pick me up with her car, because I did not have a vehicle yet. I still don't have a vehicle. I still don't have my license. And whenever she'd pick me up, I'd kind of just be quiet as we drove to the location that we were going to. I'd make a bit of small talk, but I kind of learned it was difficult to kind of communicate in the car like that. And also, another thing is, you really don't want to distract a Chinese person, especially not a Chinese woman, when she's driving. Um, but anyway, there was like an incident with that we can get into a bit. But so we're driving to this park, and we finally get there. Even though it's June, you have to remember this is Canada, so it's cold. Okay, like it's reasonably chilly. I have a bit of a coat on. I think she has a bit of a coat on too. But we get out of the car, and she's immediately commenting about, oh, how cold it is. She starts like pulling close to me, and like making comments about how tall I am, and it was like, I forget exactly what we were talking about, but basically the gist of what happened is she started like hugging me a lot, like early on into this walk. Like she had like pulled me in, and um she wasn't kissing me just yet, but the first like 3 or 4 times she'd just hug me. And sort of as it got more like kind of awkward in a way, we started like making out and like kissing to like relieve tension. Like she was very open and like willing to do that, kind of excited to do that. She started going on and telling me about how she hasn't been with a guy in about a year. At this point, her last boyfriend, it was a Chinese guy, but this Chinese guy was in Canada, like in the same town. She just left him about a year ago, and she's been sexless and lonely since. And she was telling me, I think she was telling me that she only wanted friends on Tinder. That's why she downloaded the app, because she just wanted to meet people. She doesn't have any friends here really. But you'll see why that I don't really know if that was the truth in a moment. But anyway, we continue on this walk, and she's going on about different things about like China. She was going on about how she thinks like Chinese men are evil or something. It's a little bit difficult to understand because like the language barrier, but it wasn't that bad in all honesty. It was just like a little bit difficult to understand sometimes. But she was saying something about her exes and like Chinese guys being like evil kind of. She didn't elaborate too much on that. We got down to this sort of gazebo thing and decided to to sit down for a bit and continue this conversation with each other. And not long after we sat down at this gazebo thingy, like, keep in mind, nobody was around. This was nighttime. It was a bit chilly out. Um, I'd say within like 5 or 10 minutes of sitting down here, she was like basically climbing on top of me. A few things I forgot to mention. This was a very kind of short woman. She was about 5'5", I'd say, something around there. I'm 6 feet tall. Uh, she was like she was chubby. She was kind of like I guess stubby. Like, how would you say it? Like, she was not like obese or like that fat, but she was definitely a bit chub. And yeah, like she was like I'd always walk like way faster than she was because she had these little legs and she had these little hands. Like her hands were like, dude, they were like half the size of my hands. No joke. And her I think she wore like a size 5 shoe. She wore, she had like size 5 sneakers in her hands. They looked like a 10-year-old girl's hands or something. Anyway, she starts climbing on top of me and um making out with me, and she starts making these like weird very weird comments about like my race and my bone structure. Like, guys, I swear, I know it sounds like a meme or a joke, but I swear to God, she was saying stuff about like my skull shape and like my chin and how like good my jaw was. And she was telling me like my skin was so beautiful. And she literally at one point, guys, she literally dude, she literally whispered in my ear, I'm white now. I'm white now. She literally whispered I'm white now in my ear when she was climbing on top of me at this gazebo thing. Like, she was initiating like this. Like, I wasn't, she was basically like, she initiated the climbing on top of me thing. I didn't tell her to do that. She started being kind of weird with me in this way and like touching my face and stuff and making comments about my bone structure and race. And yeah, that was all like her that was kind of driving that. Um anyway, I was kind of flabbergasted. I didn't quite know what to think, even though some of the things she was saying were kind of weird or creepy, you could say, or argue, but I took it more so as a compliment. And then she slipped her one of her boobs out. She slipped one of her nips out, and I started to suck it, and that's when she told me she wanted to have sex tonight. Like, on the very first meeting, she was down to fuck, and I was down. I was like, yeah, yeah, okay, it's time to finally lose my virginity for real. We very quickly went back to my car. Well, back to her car. We get back to my place, and my dad, he's the only guy in the house. He leaves for the garage. He goes out there so that we can have the house to ourselves. And obviously, my nerves are quite racked at this point because my last experience that was sexual was very off-putting, was very not so great. And yeah, we went to my room, we got naked, and the same problem I had the last time started happening, where it was difficult. It was taking me a little bit to get hard, and a part of the reason for that also this time is she didn't really want me to see her body. That's when I first noticed like the insecurity issues that she had, was that like she wanted me to like touch her and stuff, but she didn't she either wanted like the lights out and then she'd be like naked openly, or we could keep the lights on but would have to be like under the blankets or something. So I was just relying on like touch and her kissing me and stuff, and I'm pretty sure the lights were off. We had like a nightlight thingy I think on. But anyway, it was difficult for me to get hard. It took like 5 or 10 minutes I think for me to finally muster up a strong enough boner. And she was making these comments the whole time that were like stressing me out and making it worse. She was like, "Oh, you don't like my body. You don't like my body. I'm too fat." And she, stuff like that basically. And That just made me feel bad. Like it was probably not helping at all me get hard that she kept making like complaints and comments like that. But anyway, I eventually did get it up, and I put a condom on, and I managed to go for about 3 minutes, which was much better than my last performance. It was only 2 or 3 minutes, but it was still, I only lasted. I became soft very quick once I got inside the first time, and it never got back up again. So this time it actually kind of worked. I basically lost my V card for real. And I took it kind of slow. I wasn't the best fucker, but I did manage to last a reasonable amount of time. I didn't go soft halfway through, and anyway, so after I finish, I get up, I take the rubber off, and I leave it on my desk. Keep in mind it's dark in the room because she doesn't want to be seen naked. So I just flung the condom onto my desk in my room. I wasn't paying attention to where I was putting it. And I went to the bathroom to go clean myself up, look in the mirror, make sure I was still looking fine. Then I was going to go back and kind of cuddle with her, see if I could get it back up again, right? I was in the bathroom maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I come back to the bedroom, and immediately she's complaining, and she's mad at me. Get this, guys. I left the rubber on her phone. I literally, it landed exactly on top of her phone screen where I put it, and it was leaking onto her phone screen. Like her phone screen was all wet from the rubber. She was so mad at me. But anyway, I managed to calm her down. Like, babe, it was a mistake. It was dark. I didn't see where I was putting it at. And she calmed down. She understood, and I got naked again, and she started cuddling with me, and yeah, she started playing with my tits. And I forgot to mention this, but when I took my shirt off, one of the first things she said to me was, "Oh, you have B cups," and that did hurt. My instinctual response was to be like, "No, these are like A cups at most." And I was like, I used to be fat as a kid, and just the tits, they didn't go away fully, and she kind of giggled a bit at that, like um anyway, after the sex, she started to play with my nipples and squeeze my titties and stuff, and she was asking me these like questions like, do all white men have tits? Do they all have B cups? And I was like, no, a lot of them do though these days. Like there's a lot of fat guys, or like some of them have hormonal issues or whatever, and I'm just unfortunate, and I have, this is what my chest looks like. And and another funny thing she was doing was she was like, how would you say it? She was like messing around with my dick down there. It was all soft, like a like an ancient Greek statue or something. It was that soft, and she kept whispering like, wake up," like he was trying to whisper it like back awake or something. And I don't know. I just felt bad for her because I knew it wasn't gonna happen. I knew it wasn't getting back up for a round two. So anyway, eventually she left, and I was yeah, that was my losing my V card experience. And going forward, from this point onward in the story, I'm not going to focus on individual events like this. I'm just going to talk about like the general gist of how weird she was in these ways, what I liked about her. There's going to be like different things that she did and said, like not on any specific day, but just things that I remember in general from different days. Because it would take too long if I went into every single meeting and experience like this. But yeah, that was the first one. And the next day, I think I gave her my phone number on Tinder, and I texted her, and she wanted to confirm whether or not we were now boyfriend and girlfriend, because I forgot to mention this as well. But when we were at the park together, she said that she didn't want to be a friends with benefits kind of thing. She was looking for a boyfriend now that she met me. She was just looking for friends before, but now that, she thinks I'm attractive enough, I guess, that she wants me to be her boyfriend now. Um, so I accept right off the bat. I've never had any kind of relationship before. I just lost my virginity like the other night. So I was down for this. I was like, yep, that we're going to try it. We're going to try it. We're going to experiment with this and see where it goes, see where life takes me. And that's when it started to, I guess, become like a routine. We had this routine where she would pick me up in her vehicle. She didn't live that far away, by the way. She only lived like a 5 minute drive or so. She'd pick me up in her little fucking shitbox Hyundai Veloster. I'd always, always, always sit in the back seat. The passenger seat, cluttered 24/7. Cluttered 24/7, and she must not, she wasn't cleaning it out on purpose. She didn't want me in the passenger seat, you guys. And I'm not 100% sure why to this day, but maybe it was like some kind of like power dynamic thing where like she was demonstrating that like I'm like I'm not like an equal to her. I'm like in the back seat all the time. Like I take, like her priorities are like number one, and then I'm in the back seat maybe. Or if it was or maybe it's just like she knew that the reputation of Chinese drivers was true or something, and she was worried about like killing me in like a head-on collision if I sat in the front maybe. I still haven't figured out why exactly yet, but yeah, I'd get into the rear seat of this Hyundai Veloster. My head would hit the fucking ceiling because I'm 6 feet tall, so my head would be touching the ceiling. She'd constantly complain about how I was too heavy and tall for the car. It was harder, literally like harder to steer the vehicle when I was in the back seat because it was made for like Korean, like little Korean manlets basically that weighed like probably 100 pounds, and I was like this big 180 pound, 6 feet tall white guy in the back. It shifted the car's weight around basically. And so she'd pick me up in this little thing. We'd go to the park almost always at night because of my fucked up sleep schedule. But she also didn't have the best sleep schedule. Like she was a bit of a room rotter, guys. We'll get into that in a bit, but like iced coffees and stuff. Then we'd head to the park, and this happened multiple times a week. She'd pick me up at my work after work. She'd pick me up at my house, and would go chill there. Sometimes, we'd head back to my garage. We started going to the garage instead for sexual stuff, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. And other times she'd just come straight to my house, straight to the garage for like sexual things. Anyway, we mostly went to this park at night. Other places we did go some places during the day. Sometimes we'd take a stroll downtown in the afternoon, or like we'd go to like a wildlife park in the afternoon in the daytime. But other times I'd also take her to restaurants at night. That's another thing we did. I went like probably half a dozen times. We went to different restaurants and stuff. Um, but for the most part, our average routine was going to this park at night, the same place that we met. So now we're gonna get into the weirdness, the kind of like the weird, unusual things about her kind of unusual traits. First things first is that she wore the same kind of attire constantly. Um, she almost always had some variation of a black dress with some kind of like white accents to it. Like there'd be like a white around the neck area, or there'd be like some white around the sleeves or something, but maybe a bit of white around the chest area. But it was like 90%, 95% black dress, a little bit of white on like the edges. And that's what she wore like all the time. It was like it was her I don't know, it's yeah, I didn't have any issues with it, but it's definitely not like a normal like woman thing to have the same, even if you have multiple dresses. It's just you wear the same like color scheme and like kind of dress out everywhere all the time. And that's like the first weird trait that we have to get out of the way. The the second weird trait to get out of the way is she very obviously had some ADHD problems. And she was open about it. Like she'd even use it as an excuse sometimes for certain things, but it was true that she had it for sure. We went to like a movie theater this one time, actually a couple times, and she could not stay still in her seat. Like she had to be fucking around somehow. If she wasn't like whispering to me, she was like rocking back and forth or like leaning up against the chair next to us or like beneath us, or she was like constantly some kind of like motion or thing was going on, or she was checking her phone or something throughout the movie. And she even got a shush. Like one of the people in the movie theaters was like shh to us because of her actions. And she would constantly she'd bring up like TikTok a lot. Like she'd tell me stuff about how she watched like a weird TikTok video, and like she was addicted to TikTok. She was on it. Well, it was a Chinese version of TikTok, like Red Note or whatever they call it there. And she was on that every day. She was like brain rotting on the TikTok. Whenever we'd watch like some kind of movie, like on Netflix or something, she'd be like, can we speed it up to times two? Can we can we turn it on times two so we can get through this quicker? And yeah, it wasn't even like, even with books, she mentioned this, which I found like frankly hilarious, which was that whenever she did occasionally read a book, what she'd do is she'd read like the beginning part to have like a basic understanding, then she'd skip over like the entire middle part of the book, skip to the ending. She'd skip straight from the beginning to the ending so that she could just find out how it ended. And then she could say that she read the book. And it was like she had no like very small attention span to for anything. Yeah, and she was going on about her college too. This was one of the things about her, is that she just recently graduated was graduating college when I met her. Okay, like she basically was done with her 4 year program or whatever that she initially came here for, because she came here for college from China. And she was talking to me about that and how whenever she had big issues with studying, where almost always she'd only get work done like within a few days of the test. She'd just put everything off to the last minute until she could not ignore it anymore. Then it would be like 2 or 3 days out from the test, and she'd be studying like all day. Like all day she'd like diving into the material. She was in some kind of business program or something like that. And that's how she got through her college program, was just waiting for the test to happen a couple days before, just fucking dive in like the entire day, put it off, like constantly put off everything before that. And it's kind of relatable in a sense to me, honestly. I'm not quite that bad, I think, but maybe like for the most part I'm kind of similar. And yeah, another weird thing about her is obviously the lack of friends, like the room rotting, the her struggles to find a job, and that was a big one too. Um, so about the friendship thing, she was talking to me one night how she had some female friends back in China, but when she came here, she became rather isolated, because in the part of Canada we're in, most of the Chinese women, they're older at this point. They have like families and stuff going on, and they don't really have time to interact with some like weirdo 20 something Chinese chick. And she was saying that like white women, they're kind of like mean girls, and they're kind of like intimidating. They don't really have much of an interest in communicating or like being friends with her for the most part. And like also Indian women, they stay in like their own clique. Like they don't. She's tried to interact with Indian women, and they don't. They don't. They're not very reciprocal with her. They have their own like Indian women friends. They don't give a shit about some Chinese woman. So that's what she said about that. And yeah, so she was friendless, she was jobless, and now she was not in education anymore. So that led to her room rotting, kind of like myself in a lot of ways. And I remember she came over with her Nintendo Switch one day. I suggested it actually. I wanted to play Mario Kart with her, whatever, to pass the time. And I looked at like the amount of hours she had on like Animal Crossing. It was some like recent, I think it only came out a few years before this, some kind of recent Nintendo Switch Animal Crossing game. And it she had like nearly like I think it was like 800 hours or something, like nearly like 1,000 hours in Animal Crossing. And I see. I don't know if that's like a red flag or a green flag when it when it comes to women, but it was kind of shocking to me when I saw it that like it's such like a boring game to me. I would think, but I'm sure she'd probably say that about the types of games that I have like 1,000 hours in. So you could tell she actually was a gamer in a certain regard. It's just that she'd played these like basic, like kind of like weird like Nintendo games, or she'd play these like mobile games that I didn't have much of an interest in playing with her. And um yeah, we did play Mario Kart on that. I kicked her ass multiple times. Another game we played on the Switch was Just Dance a couple times. There was this I remember kind of a funny story. She was telling me something like I looked like I was like gay when I was dancing. Like she kept laughing at me trying to dance in front of the Just Dance thing on the Switch. And I was telling her something like, "Oh, if I was gay, then I'd be winning against you right now. Like look how good you're doing compared to me." But then on like the final round we did, I think I actually did win one song, which was it was like some Korean song. It was like da 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 Boombaya. It was like some like Boombaya like Korean song. I actually won it against her somehow. So I guess I kind of was kind of gay all along, but but anyway. Uh yeah, so there was she was a gamer. She was like isolated. Another thing was her she had some kind of like weird OCD or like a germophobia issue where she was telling me like back she should never when she was back at home in China, she never when she was at like a restaurant or something, she would refuse to like consume food with the utensils and stuff that they gave her. Like she had to use like a plastic knife and fork or something, like disposable ones, or bring her own knife and fork, or like she had like a definitely like a germophobia thing. And that carried over into like one bad experience I had with her. I was there was like a that we sell some secondhand stuff at my workplace. And I found like I saw a cup that I thought was cute. Actually, my supervisor recommended me that I get it for my girlfriend because she knew about her. I'll go into that in just a second, but it was like this little cup that had a little dog in the middle of it, and as you drink your coffee or tea or whatever, like the little dog would be revealed, and he'd be like smiling, he'd be smiling up at you. And this was unique to me because I never saw anything like that before. So I was like, yeah, maybe my supervisor's right. Maybe my girlfriend is gonna appreciate me getting this for her, but first I should probably check in with the woman herself, like just to explain some things. Because anyway, I text her like I was like, oh, I'm gonna get you something. It's gonna be a surprise. I think you're gonna like it. And she was like, oh, what's the surprise? Just tell me now so that I don't want to deal with any kind of surprises. Just tell me now. And I was like, okay, listen. There's this really cute cup at my store. I'm gonna have a discount on it. I'm gonna buy it for you for like $2. And Yeah, it's really cute. You're gonna like it. And she just like just becomes a complete bitch. She's like she was asking me would I drink like coffee or tea or something from a toilet bowl. And I was like, no, I wouldn't do that. And she was like, yeah, because other people used it. Other people used it first. That's why you wouldn't do that. I was like, okay, okay, I'm not gonna, maybe this isn't a good idea then. And she was going on, like, there's all kinds of these cups in China. I've seen them in China all the time. We have those all the time. This is just like annoying. You know, I don't like secondhand stuff. You know, we don't like this kind of thing in China. And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. This was a bad idea to even suggest this. No secondhand stuff for you. You're like above that. Okay, you only deserve the newest and the greatest things. So I was mentioning, yeah, my supervisor, like the people at my workplace knew about her, and that was because she used to come into work and follow me around, unannounced. She'd just, she'd walk in the front door, like she'd find me, working, and that was her sole goal of being there. Was not, she never bought anything. Like I'd ask her what she was looking for and she'd be like, you're the only thing I'm looking for. You're the only thing I want to come in here for. And I'd make some little jokes or like snide remarks about it being kind of stalkerish, but then she'd assure me it wasn't. Like, no, no, it's nothing like that. I just want to watch you. And no, I kind of did appreciate it though. It was kind of funny in a way. I found it. She'd kind of follow me around like a puppy or something, like a lost puppy, and she'd make like circles around me, like kind of like something out of an anime too, to some extent. And I remember one time she came into my work and she started being like, I guess I didn't respond to her that much the night before, and she was like, you better not have been cheating. You better not have been cheating on me last night. Were you cheating on me? And I was like, no, no, of course I wasn't. And of course, I really wasn't. Like, I never cheated on her even once. But she was, as I mentioned earlier, very insecure. And this wasn't the only time she accused me of cheating, by the way. There was this other event, at the park at one night where I guess because of like the climate or something, my lips were a bit more red than usual. Maybe it might just be because she's not used to like white people lips. I guess in China they're not as like bright pink or red sometimes, but she assumed that I had lipstick on my lips when I didn't at all. But it was just the way that like white people lips are sometimes, and she was like questioning me for like 10 minutes straight, like, oh, if you did you cheat? You were kissing some other woman, weren't you? And I started laughing. That was the worst. I really should. It was just like an instinctual reaction. I started laughing because I wasn't expecting this kind of a confrontation over just like the color that my lips naturally are. And, yeah, but anyway, at my workplace um she was following me around and stuff, and my coworkers took notice, my supervisors took notice, and that she was like a cute little Chinese thing following me around. And yeah, so I don't know if that's weird or not. I don't know if it's normal or not, but that's one thing she used to do. As I already mentioned, she had a big like body image issue. I kept telling her, "Listen, I want to see you naked, okay? Like I'm a guy. I have a more like visual sexuality. I want to basically I want to see like what I'm putting my for my PP to get hard. I want to see what I'm putting it in. Like I want to not just touch you, but like see like your ass and stuff as well." And she was very like off put by that. She didn't want any of that. She either I turn the lights off and then I can see her naked, like quote unquote see her naked kind of, or like we did it under the blankets or something. And that was throughout the whole relationship. That wasn't just like a first time kind of anxiety thing she had. No, no, that was continuous throughout the whole thing. And it really did irk me and piss me off to an extent, because it did cause some issues, especially early on with my penis. Anyway, um she another thing besides that, as I mentioned, the cheating thing, the jealousy, she would tell me, like, after we had sex and stuff, or like when we were just on a random walk, she'd be like, you better not cheat on me, you really better not. And she said multiple different things. Like, sometimes she'd say, if you cheat, then your life is over, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna take a knife and I'm just gonna stab your head off or something if you cheat on me. In other times, she'd say that, if I ever cheat, if she ever found out that I was cheating on her, she was going to cut my dick off. She was gonna slice my dick clean off, and that was gonna be the end of it. She didn't care if she went to jail. She was just gonna cut it off. And I like, at the time, you see, I wasn't too concerned by that, because for one thing, I don't like, I wouldn't cheat. I know that I wouldn't cheat. um but at the same time, there's also, I guess, the question of, like, well, what if she just thinks you're cheating but you're really not, and she does some crazy shit. And yeah, that's valid, but I did care about her, and I kind of just laughed this sort of stuff off for the most part. And another thing was her job struggles. Throughout our entire, like, 4 month period of being together, she could not find a job for the life of her. She did get this one job briefly in, I'm not gonna say where it was, but it was in, like, a remote part of the where I'm at, like, even more remote, more sparse of people. It was some kind of, like, resort hotel. She had that job for maybe like 3 or 4 days, and she was getting back to me, like, texting me, communicating with me, this whole time, that she hated it there. They were making her clean like 12 rooms an hour, and they were only like little rooms, but she had to get one done really quick. And they also made her clean the men's outhouse. She was really pissed off at that she made her they were making her go clean the toilets and stuff, and she was really grossed out because of her germophobia. So she quit after like 4 days of that. And it's not like she was like adverse to work as a whole, because she was telling me how in China she used to be an accountant, actually, and she used to work the 996. Okay, so as an accountant in this, like, white collar field, she would be working like 9 hours a day, like six days a week or something like that. And it was so it's not like she was completely adverse to work. It was just like this kind of physical labor she was doing at this hotel rubbed her the wrong way. It wasn't what she was used to, so she quit that pretty quickly. And these other jobs on like Indeed or something, like, you'd think that, oh, she's like a Chinese, like an ethnic woman, she's gonna get hired here in Canada pretty quickly. But no, that was not her experience. She applied to all kinds of places, apparently, she was telling me, and she just could not find a job after graduation, no matter what she did. And keep in mind, guys, she had a master's degree, so it's she had like a master's degree in business, and she couldn't find anything. The only thing she could find was this business related job in like 5 hours away from where I'm at, and she didn't want to take that, because that would, like, remove her from me. I couldn't see her anymore, so she didn't accept that. And that was just a constant struggle throughout. And eventually, I mentioned to her, at this point, I really want this thing to work out. Like, I want to be able to, keep you in the same location as me, and you're not finding anything. They're going to run out of funds at some point. Um, so I was like, I could put the word in, like a good word in for you at my job, and have you work in, like, at the part where, like, most of the women work in. We wouldn't even, like, see each other that much most days. You'd kind of be, like, in the back, or, whatever. You'd be in this, like, a secluded part of the building. I'm only part time anyway. You could just, like, work there maybe. But she was not interested in that either. I guess maybe she just didn't want to work in the same building as me. She thought it would be awkward or weird or something if she did that, or she was too prideful to accept that. So she did not, yeah, she didn't accept that, and she just remained jobless. And the last weird thing about her I wanted to mention, like, the strange things. She would say, like, the weirdest things to me sometimes. maybe there was somewhat of a cultural barrier going on here where like she'd say something offensive or weird that she wouldn't really realize to what extent it was weird. Or maybe it's just like she was autistic or something, which is what I suspect. And like we would be get finished having like sex or something, and I remember this one time we were finished doing that, and she mentioned to me because it was like the fall time, Christmas was gonna be a few months. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas, and she said that she wanted a microscope because back when she was in biology class in her youth in China, she loved looking at like these like red blood cells and like bacteria and stuff through the microscope. She thought it was really interesting. But she said specifically the reason she wanted this microscope, it was because she wanted to see my sperm cells. She wanted she wanted to see my sperm swimming around in the microscope. And I was like dude, this time as well, like my mom was in the other room because like this was like the first time we had like we did it in my house, not in the garage, where like my mom was like asleep or like trying to sleep in the other room, and she was like going on about this in a way like I really hope my mom did not hear this conversation, but she was she, yeah, she just started going on. She wants to see my sperm in the microscope. Like it wasn't just that, like she'd bring up this like lookism, stuff like that, like even on our first date with talking about my bone structure and shit. Like she was very unfiltered is what I'm trying to get across, and I really appreciated that about her in a way. But it was also weird, like you wouldn't expect the average like local white woman or something to be randomly going on about these kinds of subject matters, and she'd just like blurt them out openly without seemingly any kind of how would you put it, like any kind of filter or like block that would prevent her from from saying this off the wall kind of stuff. um what one last thing, one last note about this is that she basically viewed being beholden to a man as like a form of slavery, and this is how she'd kind of talk about it with me. Like she should say things like if she ever got pregnant by me somehow, she would abort it, but even if she could not abort it, she would and like she had to keep it for some reason. She told me that she would go back to China with it, and she wouldn't let me be like the father of it. Like she didn't she just wanted to be like a single mom with the kid if she ever had a kid with me, because she said that she didn't think that like kids needed fathers. She thought that like dads were like inherently a bad influence, and she she thought that like men were in general were bad and like evil in a way, and that we shouldn't be involved in like child rearing or anything like that. Like she said like she wouldn't even allow me to pay child support or anything like that. She'd just go back to China and take the kid with her and just not see me again or something. And then she'd just like raise the kid on her own. Um and yeah, I really wish that I would have tried to like question her on like why she became that way. Like what the hell did her father do to her, or like in her upbringing or something that made her think like this. But I never got too deep into that. I kind of just laughed at it at the time. And yeah, she definitely had this like feminist that's the other thing is like there's a lot of like Western guys like, oh, like Asian women are like more traditional. They're like, they're like the traditional women, like what white women were back in like the 1950s or something. And no, that's not like at least like most of the East Asian women, like Chinese, Korean, Japanese, a lot of them are very much like feminists in their own regard. There might be slight differences, but yeah, a lot of them are not jiving with men so great, and you can see that in the birth rates there. And so now it's time to, get away from like the kind of weird things about her, like the mental illness stuff or whatever, and talk about like the magical things about her, the things that made me really appreciate her in a sense. And that was that she was, I was listening to, like a Collective Dismal video recently, as much as I hate to admit it, because we have like a beef, but at one point in it, this live stream that he did, he mentioned that like Italian and like Mediterranean families that he knows of or that he's heard about, they have a much more like animated spirit to them. They're much more real like with their emotions. Like you notice like with these wasps and stuff in America and Canada, they're very reserved. Even if they're having like a funeral or something, they might cry a bit, but they don't. They're not like shouting at the sky, like shouting at God or something, and like visibly quite distraught at whatever is going on. They kind of everything is kind of in a sense at a more like surface level, at like a more robotic like NPC level with these like Anglo, like more Northern European types in Canada and America, whereas these like Italians and stuff, like they're very expressive and like raw in a way. And that's sort of the sense that I got with her. Um, not I don't know if it was so much an emotional thing, but it was just like the unfiltered nature of her, like the things she'd talk to me about, the things that she'd do with me. Like I mentioned on a stream I was on, she when she'd get a little pissed off at me over something, she'd like we were at the park, there was like a river there, and she'd push me around and like pretend she was gonna throw me in the river. And like some of this might have been due to like her ADHD traits too, like where she was like climbing on top of me at random and stuff, kind of like disregarding my personal space, but she'd be very like spontaneous with me in that regard. It basically made me nostalgic for my childhood in a way. Like I remember when I was a kid back before I isolated myself. I used to have these relations and friendships with these other kids and girls, boys, where there was no filter with each other. We kind of just said what we were feeling and thinking, and would just like do things on instinct and say things on instinct. And that's very much what she kind of did. And it made me feel like I was, like young again. Like it made me feel almost like I was a kid again, like I was re-experiencing something that I hadn't since I was, I don't know, like 12 or 13 or something. And it felt like magic to me because I'd been isolated for so long. I didn't even know it was possible for me to get, like feel it, like, recapture that kind of feel again with somebody. And then it happened with her. And another based thing I really appreciated about her is that she was very open about not liking some of the other like ethnic groups so much that were coming into Canada. Like she basically shit talked Indians pretty frequently. She'd like show me these these TikToks of like Indian cooking and how like gross it was, and she'd talk to me about how like gross like she heard stories about like Indians getting into like apartments here, and then like the stink would take 4 years to go away. Like the smell would still linger, like the curry stench would linger for like 4 years after they were gone. And and she was talking about like like all of the grapes and stuff that would happen over there, and like Chinese people would go over there to India on like a travel visa or something to see what the country was like, or like on a business trip or something, and they'd shower with the water there, and the water was it would make them dirtier than they would have been if they just hadn't taken a shower at all. It should, and when it came to blacks, like she'd show me these TikToks of like mixed race, like white and Chinese babies, and she'd be like, "Oh, look how cute they are! Look how cute these like white Asian baby mixes look, and how like beautiful they are. Look at like their nice hair and their nice facial features. then like immediately afterwards should pull up like a mix of like a Chinese and a black baby on TikTok, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, look how ugly this thing is. Like this is like look at how kind of like disgusting disgusting this is." It made me laugh. Like it was just so weird because like you wouldn't expect anything like that from like a Western, like a local woman that they'd never do something like that. But she didn't have these like Western sensitivities that she was raised in over there in China, and she'd just be so open about these kinds of things when it came to these other groups that she wasn't so acquainted with, that she didn't uh that weren't so familiar to her. Another thing that she said about the blacks was that she heard a rumor that black men have the biggest dongs. They have the biggest dinglings down there. But she would sort of comfort me and reassure me that even if that's the case, she's really not attracted to black men at all. And the reason why is because she found them facially unattractive. She thought they were facially ugly, and I believe her because she was only ever into younger pretty boys. That's what she would always tell me. That's what seemed obvious too from like the bands she was into. She liked a lot of boy bands like K-pop, BTS type stuff. She even told me one of the reasons she wanted to come to Canada was because of Justin Bieber. She was a big fan of like the pretty boy type of thing. And I don't know if I've said this exactly yet, but when I met her, I was 21 and she was 28 at the time. So there was a nearly 7 year difference between us. And she was mentioning this, from the get go on our Tinder conversation. She was like, well, you might be like a little young to me, but you are sure handsome and stuff like that. But she gave me a chance anyway in real life. And then she'd constantly kind of bring up like the age gap thing to me. She would say things like, "You are like a little boy," to me. She'd say she'd tell me I was like a little boy a lot when we'd meet up in person, right? Maybe some of it was just kind of playful banter kind of thing. To some extent, maybe she was demeaning me. And I'm gonna get into the our sex life a bit in this upcoming segment. I'm not gonna go too detailed with that. I'm not gonna drag that out too long, but it's crucial to understanding the breakup that wound up taking place and why that happened. I don't want it to seem like she was just only demeaning me. She was saying I was handsome and stuff. She was complimenting me. At the same time, she was telling me, she loved me. But she would hurt my feelings a bit sometimes. She would take jabs at me like that. And so let's just dive into the basics of our sex life. The gist of it was that it gradually improved from the first meeting. The next couple times after that, they were a little better, but they were still troublesome. Eventually, after a few weeks or so, I figured out that I could actually do a second round. I could do round two, and I figured out that I was actually better at that than I was during round one. Most of the time, I could go faster, while still being hard because I wasn't quite as sensitive then. Just it was like a mental thing mostly, I think. And yeah, once I figured that out, I started doing pretty good on these round twos that I'd do. Eventually, sort of closer to the end, I'd even was getting good at round one. Um, I could go sometimes 10, 15 minutes round one. I wouldn't be that fast at it, but I got her done. And round two, sometimes I'd go like 20 minutes or longer, and it was, I'd say my performance definitely improved quite a lot. It was mostly just a lack of exposure thing I had previously. Since I was still a virgin, I didn't I had a lot of like mental anxieties. I didn't have confidence because I didn't know whether or not I was even capable of being good at sex. And that was my main challenge. I thought that, the first week or two, I did get like a penis pump off of Amazon. I thought maybe that would fix it. It really didn't do shit. I tried using it, and it basically it would like go away. It would make me hard, but then within like seconds of me getting it out of that thing, it would go soft again pretty quick, and then it would um it didn't do shit basically. It was just a mental thing, a mental hurdle I had to get over. And or earlier on into the relationship, she would say some kind of demeaning things to me about my sexual performance. Some of it was probably just like joking on her part, but then in the later part of the relationship, it's like it did a flipperoo basically, and she started complaining about how I was like getting too good at sex, how like I was hurting her. It's kind of funny how that happened, but anyway, I remember I was at the park earlier on, like within a few weeks or so of getting into this relationship, and I kind of invited it on myself. Like I made like a self-deprecating joke where she was calling me like a little boy again, and I responded to that by just like instinctually I said something like, well, I guess my penis is pretty mature. And she was like, yeah, it's like an 80-year-old. And that stung a little bit, even though I invited it on myself, I guess. Um, Another thing, we were leaving the garage after we did the thing one time, probably a month or so into the relationship, and I had some issues getting, I mean, more like staying hard that night, I think. And as she was about to get into her car, I was walking her to it. My cat was following us around, and I was having like a discussion with her about how my cat is neutered, and I was explaining to her what that meant, and she was like, "Oh, he's just like you. He has no penis." And yeah, that definitely stung a bit. But then she was like, "Oh, even if you don't have a penis, I still love you." Yeah, stuff like that. But my sexual performance, that really was not the main issue. The main issue was that the condoms kept breaking. Okay, um, she would not get on birth control. She refused. I don't even know if she was ever on it before, but she just didn't want to take the pill. She was adverse to getting anything like an IUD, and so we had to rely on condoms. Even though I'd kind of frequently just go in and then pull out instead of putting a condom on. That's unsafe too. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Like we probably something could have happened with that. Even besides the broken condom thing, but anyway, I got legit probably at least like half a dozen condoms broke in this 4-month relationship, and I still am not entirely sure why that happened. It really dampened my, I don't know, it made me a little bit scared of sex in a way. It kind of made her a bit scared of having sex with me too, I think. I don't know, like I think she might have thought I was like sabotaging the condoms at one point on purpose. And I honestly like I theorized that about her at first too. But then, I'd get like a different box, a different brand. I wouldn't let her allow like, I wouldn't allow her to go near it alone at all. And it'd still break just as easily. So I must have been, guys, I must have been doing something like retarded, because I don't, I look it up online, and yeah, there's stories of guys that breaking condoms. They don't know what happened, but it's like, how do I do it like 6, 7 times in just 4 months? Like it doesn't even. I don't think I was putting them on backwards. Like they slid on easily enough. I don't, at first they were a medium size. Then, even though I don't think my thing is big enough to fit a large size, I went, fuck it, I might as well get a large, see if that works. And that, I think that, that might have, I only got to try it like once or twice before she broke up with me, but those did loosely kind of fit my thing. Um, and I didn't break, but it was only like one time. So I don't know if that was like a surefire solution or not. And it kind of fit a bit loose, to be honest, as I said. So it wasn't the most practical thing anyway. This was a big issue because as a result of that, I had to get her plan B twice. The first was maybe a month or so into our relationship, maybe less than that actually. The second time was about a month and a half or so before the end of our relationship. And whenever she'd get really mad at me over this, as if it was like it might have been my fault to an extent that the condoms were breaking, but like I wasn't doing it on purpose, guys. So she'd get really mad at me about it. She'd get all basically like after she took the plan B, she would become more distant and like less horny, more mad at me that she even had to get on this. She'd complain about feeling sick on it. I'm not sure to what extent she might have been exaggerating her symptoms because women, right? But um I had to get her a pregnancy test too. That was about uh 3 weeks before our relationship ended because she missed one of her periods. Apparently plan B actually does that pretty frequently. It causes women to miss their periods afterwards. So yeah, it was just a very stressful time kind of, did the plan B work? Did it not work? Why do the condoms keep breaking? It was just very kind of intense. I obviously wanted to keep this woman, but this was causing too much conflict. And she had mentioned to me kind of earlier on into the relationship because I was poking and prodding as to whether or not she'd ever consider like an IUD. And she was like, no, but I think, maybe you should get a vasectomy. Yeah, she was the first one to suggest this, like within a month or a month and a half of our relationship, that I should get a vasectomy and that would just like solve all of our issues. It didn't sound too much like she was that interested in having kids anyway. So eventually after that, the plan B twice and the pregnancy test, um, it was actually, I think, on the night that we went out to get the pregnancy test. I pulled her, aside in McDonald's or something like that, and I was trying to explain to her, listen, I think you were right. I think maybe I should get a vasectomy. I don't think I'm ever gonna want to have kids. And she was really weirded out by it. Like um, she was right away. She was like, no, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And the reason why was she kept telling me, well, then what if we break up or something and then you're really going to regret it one day. You'll meet another woman and you're going to blame me for it, for not being able to have kids, and I don't want to have that kind of I don't want to, feel that on my soul or something like that. And I was trying to put like a positive spin, a positive twist to it. I was like, no, listen, babe, that's not going to happen. Even on the off chance that it did happen, I'd never blame you for that. It's 100% my choice. I'm an adult. But I don't think she was hearing it too much, and I think that's one of the reasons why the breakup might have happened when it did, like so early, was because she was concerned I was really going to follow through with it and just get this vasectomy done. Now, onto the breakup. So there were obvious, warning signs of, this was going to happen. It started really late September, I'd say, about a month before it actually took place. Really, it was like on the night we went to get the pregnancy test. I think she was obviously very not in the mood to see me so much. She was, I was suggesting to her, let's just go to the park, and she's like, no, I'm sick of going there. I'm sick of going to the same park at night with you. It's weird. And so I was like, oh, let's just go to like Tim Hortons or like a McDonald's or something and just have a bite to eat and chat for a bit. And she's like, no, I don't wanna. I just don't want to do that. I'm bored. Like, what else do you have? And it's nighttime. We live in like a small town. I can't. There's not that many places to go really. I spend like half an hour in the parking lot looking at shit we could do potentially on Google Maps, having like a bit of like a bitter back and forth with her somewhat. I guess it's like the little things that, they didn't used to be boring, they were now getting boring to her. Maybe it was because of her ADHD traits, maybe it's just a woman thing in general, but I guess with all the, the pregnancy scare stuff going on, with her like missing her period and stuff. She was more grumpy than usual, more less entertained than usual by me, and I could tell. And she was like, "Oh, I'm sick of driving you around like a little boy." Like that's the first time she said something like that to me, which was that she didn't like driving me around everywhere, she said. And I was like, "Yeah, okay." At first I thought this would, probably pass. Maybe she was gonna, once her period comes and that goes, her hormones will get good again, and then she'll be more pleasant to be around again. A little over a week after that, it was October the 6th, 2025. I remember that because it was the Chinese Moon Festival thingy, and we were outside. We went to this like Italian restaurant thing together. We were sitting on like the deck, and we could see the full moon. It was like the harvest moon. And I remember her telling me about that, Chinese traditions and holidays and stuff. And I remember sort of early on in this conversation we had on this restaurant date, she mentioned something to me about how, you know, sometimes if she gets like too close to a guy or like too close too quick, she just like it gets this gut feeling to pull away basically, and to like she doesn't it's like too intense. She wants to be alone, like she wants to get away from it. She gets this sort of reaction. So that was her warning me, I think, that she was considering breaking up with me. And I was telling her, like, oh, well, if it ever, if that something like that ever happened, I'd rather take like a break maybe, or maybe we just see each other a bit less for some weeks or something like that. And she was kind of like, like she was kind of like, like, yeah, like it wasn't really a serious consideration or something, but she was being polite about it. And but yeah, I wasn't fully braced for it yet, though. I thought, yeah, you always kind of assume the best. The last time we did anything sexual was late September, and she never did anything sexual with me again until late October when the breakup happened. Her period came and went, the plan B worked, and she still wasn't horny afterwards. She kept saying that she hormonally wasn't feeling regular or correct. I don't know if it was that or if it was, she was already trying to like emotionally distance herself a bit because she was planning on breaking up with me, maybe, or maybe she just lost some attraction to me or something. I don't know exactly to this day, but she did come over to my garage once in like mid October, and that was the last time I'd see her in real life. We watched a Chinese cartoon movie called Nija together. It's like a children's movie, like a Disney-esque thing, but it's Chinese produced. And it wasn't too bad actually. It was an entertaining thing to watch. I didn't know the Chinese were quite up to par in that regard, to the extent that it was. Um, but I was trying to get sex from her anyways that night, even though she told me that she wasn't interested. And she kept, like, swatting my hand away and stuff. And she was just like, no, no, I don't want that. So I didn't push forward after that. Yeah, but I did make it clear to her that, like, I wanted something sexual next time because it had been so long. And so, she relented and she was telling me as she was, going to her car that night that, yeah, next time she's gonna, we're gonna get back to it again next time. So I wake up like 4 or 5 days after that, and I'm excited because this is the night we're supposed to get back to having like a sex life again. And so I message her. I woke up in the afternoon. I message her, right away. We're still meeting tonight, right? What movie are we gonna watch? Are we gonna watch the sequel to Nija or Nijao, whatever it's called? And she got back to me and was like, "Yeah, we can do that, but actually I'm not feeling the sex thing anymore. I don't want to do that tonight." And I hadn't wanked it out, I don't think, in some days, so I was kind of pent up, and this frustrated me. So I waited like half an hour or so contemplating how I should respond to this, and My response wound up being, well, if you truly loved me, what harm, like how difficult would it be for you to just like spread your legs for 5 minutes or something? Like it's not like this is some Herculean task you're doing here. Like even if you're not super into it, like what's even the big deal? If you actually, if you love me and you're falling in love with me and stuff like you're saying, why would it, you're gonna be over here anyways. It'll take like 5-10 minutes, just get it over with for me, and then you'll be back to desiring it organically eventually. And her response to that was no. If you're gonna push that, then break up. And then I complained to her, why is it always like, every time we get into some kind of like little argument or something, it's like you just say break up to me, like you just threaten to leave like right away instead of trying to work anything out. So I was like, yeah, maybe you keep, bringing this up like this. You keep saying break up. Well, maybe we should. Yeah, maybe we should break up. And that was either like, I'll get into why this may or may not have been obviously I regretted saying that a lot in the immediate aftermath, but there she wrote, that was the end. She replied, "Yep, I'm gonna break up," and nothing could pry her away after that. I apologized to her after and was like, "No, I was just frustrated when I woke up. Let's just work through this." No response. She actually did. Okay, I went to, I was feeling pretty sad that night. I went to go um later on at like 12 p.m. or something. I went and she wasn't responding to me for hours now. I went to go smoke a joint on my back deck and sort of just to ease my mind a bit. I thought it would do that. And then when I got back, I was super high, but I saw that she did text me. And she just said that she missed me with like a crying face emoji. And that kind of put me at ease. Like that kind of made me feel relief for a moment. I don't know why, but I didn't feel like responding to it right away. I thought I could probably get this, fix this relationship back up again. I'll respond to her in the morning time and see if we can get this working again. But I'd come to deeply regret that, because if I had responded within like a few minutes of her sending that text, I think much higher chance I could have tried to patch things up a bit with her. But even by the next morning, it was too late. Like I missed my window. So the next day, she's not responding to anything I send. And it's, I realize again, like, the sinking feeling that it's over. Like, it's over. It comes over me again. And I become quite depressed about that right away. Because I came to the realization that I truly was in love with her by that point. Earlier on into our relationship, I definitely loved her. I cared about her, but I was a bit iffy as to like to what extent I had feelings for her still. Um, I don't know. I talked about some of my mental struggles in my last video with emotions and feelings and stuff, but it was a little bit difficult to tell to what extent I had feelings for this woman for the first, to a great degree until we broke up. Basically, it wasn't until that moment that the emotions started coming out that I realized I truly did feel there was something missing from me now that I didn't have her in my life, and that there was a lot of components to that. As I said, she made me feel a very certain kind of way, like almost reminiscent of like some of the childhood friendships that I had. And I felt like what are the chances I'm gonna find another woman whose personality complements mine so well in that regard. She makes me feel that way. Like there's a certain like animation behind her. It's like a certain childhood innocence type of thing to her personality that you can tell is like genuine. Like after I think like 6 years at that point of isolation, I never thought I'd have anything. Like I missed out completely on teenage love, basically. And that's what this was basically, it felt like to me. It was kind of like my, late bloomer teenage love that happened. And then it was right back to isolation again, right back to nothingness. Almost as if like it had never happened, like it was all just a dream. And that saddened me, obviously. I didn't know if I'd ever get anything that made me feel that way again. I know the average white woman has expressed little to no interest in me. And frankly, like the average young white woman, she has, at least around where I'm at, like a different, like colder, more waspy personality. Like it's not as, and so I don't think that the average, youngish white woman could make me feel the way that she did. And I was trying not to think back on all the little, moments that we spent together, all the conversations we had, us laughing with each other, us watching movies and stuff, and us cuddling, and her whispering sweet nothings in my ear, so on and so forth. I knew, every time I thought about anything like that, I'd start to tear up and I'd start to cry, and it was hard to stop. And it was like, I need to just like keep this out of my mind, as much as possible. And eventually I'll start to forget these little moments that we had. I'll start to, lose my grip on my memory, and it won't be so bad anymore. I won't even, many months down the line, I'll barely even be able to recall some of this stuff. It's not as going to be as fresh, and I just have to distract myself to, the greatest extent that I can to make sure I'm not just like in my head reminiscing on this experience all the time. And ultimately, that's the main thing I think that motivated me to become more like involved in online friendship kind of stuff, like Discord, and some of these communities I was getting into that I talked about in my other videos. That's really like basically just to distract myself with something else in my life, something else that was new, to get my mind off of her. I started doing that, I think, in early November of 2025, and that was only like a couple weeks after the breakup took place. And I'd say that did help to an extent, but there's only so much that I could, so much of the sadness that I could stave off. I'd still get these sort of, it would just randomly pop into my head, and I'd, start thinking of those moments we spent together for, it was hard to stop once it started. And sometimes like there would be triggers. That's one of the things. If you work at like a store that sells clothing and stuff, and your GF is like your like girlfriend was a weirdo that used to wear the exact same dress like every time you went out together, you're gonna come across a dress that looks like that in your store sometimes, and you're gonna like start to tear up a bit because like it's kind of unavoidable. It's like a trigger that like at your workplace where you have to go to make money all the time. And yeah, stuff like that would happen where I just get these triggers, and it would, like a PTSD type of thing. And that was also why I was so desperate at, during that time period to get back on the dating apps again, find a new woman, was because I was under the impression that if I could find a new like friend with benefits or relationship somehow off of these apps again, if I struck gold again, in that case, then it would be like the ultimate distraction from this. The new woman would take my head away, like, my mind off of the old woman. And that's it. It was to an extent that I was like, it was missing sex, but I think to a greater degree it was because of my like emotional state at the time. I wanted like a distraction. And I did find a new woman eventually. It's the black woman I've spoken about before. And she did that, it did work. It did help me get over this. I'm not sad about it anymore. And it wasn't too long after I met her that this sadness pretty much went away for good. It would still rear its head a little bit every now and then, but the distraction worked in that regard. But what failed to happen was me developing the same kind of romantic feelings and connection that I had with this Chinese chick. With the new black woman, it just there was no spark there, even just from the beginning. It just I thought that she would grow on me, and I gave it a shot. I gave it a good chance, I think, but it just didn't. It wasn't happening. Her personality, sort of as as I was saying, I didn't think I'd be able to find another woman with the same qualities that I loved so much about her, and with this one, at least that was the case. Like she just felt more like NPC, like I guess, like more. I don't know if NPC is the right term or not, but it just felt colder. It just felt more like indifferent, less spontaneous. We would, a part of it, I think, too, is because neither of us have a vehicle this time. So that makes meeting, like, we can't just, off the bat go out to the park or something whenever we want. Everything has to be planned beforehand more. Everything feels more structured in that way. But also just like the interactions we were having, like the conversations were more structured. It's like she didn't have that spontaneous spark to her. She wasn't saying more like off the wall kinds of things that would make me laugh. She wasn't doing anything like, pushing me around and stuff, doing anything weird like physically with me that was like childish or playful. It felt more like just adult and like soulless to me, which is why I started to distance myself from her. And at first, I suggested we just be friends with benefits after a couple months, and she was down for that. She was like, "Yeah, I've never had that before. I'll try it." But then after a couple weeks or so, she was complaining, "Oh, you don't communicate with me as much as you used to anymore, and you were having these communication problems with me from even back then." And so it was obvious like she wanted to communicate with me very frequently, like a girlfriend would, anyways. She obviously didn't want the friends with benefits thing. She was just saying that because she thought I could, we'd get back together, girlfriend and boyfriend again. And the reason I had communication issues was just because I didn't feel that spark with her, for the most part. My sleeping schedule played a part in it too, but it was just because she was kind of out of sight, out of mind, like a lot of other individuals in my life, more so than the Chinese one was, because I didn't feel the same kind of emotional attachment. And I could, back when I was with the Chinese girl, I was kind of confused as to whether or not, like, to what extent I had feelings for her for a while. But there was, like, nothing to compare her to at that time. Like, I didn't have a past relationship where I had stronger feelings for this other woman and I could contrast and compare the two. This time I did have that, and this woman just did not live up to the Chinese one in this regard. And I wasn't so sure about, wanting a future with her because of that. So just recently I broke things off with her for good. I told her like less than a week ago, like 5 days ago or so, that I think that maybe we should just be friends, like platonic friends. And she was like, "Oh, well, why would I want to be friends with you after you used me?" But, I guess I kind of did use her as a distraction a bit, but it was, I didn't have like ill intent really. It's just, it didn't work out. We don't match as well as I was hoping. There was like, I think it was on 4chan or something like that, but there's somebody reposted this Reddit post recently where there's a woman that I came across this. It's like a woman that just got married to like an oofy doofy husband, and she's going on about how yesterday was like my wedding night, and I just made the realization that this was the worst mistake I've ever made in my life, because even though this guy, he treats me well, like he does all the right things, he's super nice, he's like the perfect husband material, you'd think. I'm not romantically attracted to him. Like I just can't. There's no feelings there. There's no spark. There's no butterflies in my stomach when I interact with him. And I feel like I'm gonna wind up mistreating him because of this, and I'm just never gonna be satisfied with him. And there was a lot of like ridicule in the post responding to this thing of like, oh yeah, typical roasty blah blah blah. But I was just thinking like, yeah, I kind of relate to this. Like this is basically what I'm going through right now with this black woman, only I'm not getting married to her. But yeah, this is kind of relatable to me actually right now. So now it's time for like the last part. I want to give my takeaways and such. And one of the things, it's time to dispel like a certain cope that you hear a lot in this community, which is, it comes both from ethnic cells and Wignat types, where I've had this comment made to me probably 4 or 5 times now by different individuals where they're telling me, "Oh, she just wanted you for the passport, like the citizenship. She just wanted you for the money. Like that's what all these like Asian immigrant girls want white guys for. It's just for the citizenship and the money." And I'm gonna go ahead and dispel this right here, right now, why that was obviously not the case in this situation, at least. First of all, she didn't even like Canada. Like, she didn't even like this place at all. She was living here for about 3 years by the time I met her. She just recently graduated college when I met her. And she would complain about this place all the time. Like, she didn't love China either, but you could tell, like, she was missing China, and she liked more things about China ultimately, I think, than she liked about this place. She hated the climate here. She didn't like that there weren't enough like Chinese people that were in her age group that would interact with her here. She didn't like the job market here. She was really burnt out by that. She didn't like the amount of Indians here. She really didn't like that. There was like so many things that she would complain about when it came to Canada. Like she would say this country was shit. She would say that she didn't want to remain here for the rest of her life. But, at the same time, obviously, she knew that I wasn't interested and that it would be very difficult for me to move with China to like China with her. I mentioned maybe wanting to move to the United States someday, and she clearly was not interested in that. She was saying some shit about how, originally she wanted to go to Australia, but she settled for Canada because that's just like, the college she got into, I guess. And, she kind of still wishes that, she could go to Australia someday. Like she was trying to convince me to move to Australia, and I was like, nah, fuck that. I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, so the first thing is she really didn't like Canada in the first place. Second of all, whenever I'd bring up like marriage to her or like having kids one day, she was usually like kind of dismissive about it. Like you could tell she didn't really want to go on into that conversation too deep or for too long. Like she'd entertain me a little bit and as like a down the road type of thing. Some years from now, maybe she'd consider something like that. But as I said, at the same time, like she'd tell me things like I said earlier, where if even if at least right now, like if she somehow had a kid with me, she'd just like fuck off to China with it, and she wouldn't even want me to be the dad. So there was like some conflicting messaging there where she'd say shit like that to me sometimes, but then she was like, well, some years from now, maybe it would be different if we get along really well or something and we get married and maybe someday you could be a dad if I change my mind about this with you, but that's like a distant thing. I don't, she didn't want to ruminate too much or talk to me too much about like where this was going in the future. Like she was never pressuring me into getting married to her or anything like that. And that's another like a way I can contrast her with the black woman, because the black woman, who's also much older than me, has been much more like on my ass about getting married to me within the next year or two. Like you can tell she genuinely, she's not even like hiding it, guys. Like she wants the citizenship, and she's telling me this is the easiest way to get it. And she's telling me, she's going to be too old to have another kid soon, and she wants to have a kid with me someday. And so she's, the Chinese woman did not like talking about this kind of thing. The black woman did. Third of all, she almost certainly could have baby trapped me if she really wanted to, with like how many close calls there was. If she just like didn't take the plan B, then there'd probably be a kid right now. That she'd probably be having my baby right about now. So if that was like, she could have stayed in the country. She could have got like child support and shit from me, but just through like trickery if she wanted to, and she didn't do that. She obviously didn't opt for that. So it's not like she was telling me like lies or was hiding her true intentions or anything like that. She was being truthful with me. She obviously took the pill. She really was scared of having a kid and didn't want to do that. And in regard to the money thing specifically, like there was one time halfway through the relationship or so where she was having issues with her car insurance. It was like renewing or something, and she had to pay, I think it was like a few $1,000s to get her car insurance here renewed. And I straight up offered to pay her like $1,000 or $1,500 that I had saved up in my bank account to like help her with that. And she straight up rejected that offer. She didn't want a single penny from me for her car insurance. Like she said she'd feel too bad about that. She was independent. She did not need the money, even though it was like over 1,000, and it would have cut her car insurance in half almost. So yes, it wasn't just the money. Like I wasn't spending lavishly on her either. I'd get her McDonald's and stuff like that. I'd pay for her restaurant bills most of the time at least. But we didn't go to restaurants too often. We went maybe, I'd say once every 2 or 3 weeks on average. And I'd only spend maybe like 60, 70 Canadian on those outings. It wasn't a big deal because I live with my parents and I don't pay rent and I don't have a car yet. So I can save up a good bit of money. So it wasn't that much I was spending on her, really. And she was talking to me about how she knows, like, she knew Chinese women in China and stuff. One of them was a friend of her mom, that they like married like older Western guys, presumably for their money. And she was telling me that she was never interested in that, like even remotely so, because like the money, as far as she's concerned, is not worth being tied down to like this ugly old man, as she would put it. Uh, she was really just attracted to younger pretty boy types, even though she was in her late 20s now. And like old men kind of grossed her out and disgusted her. Like the money just wouldn't be worth it as far as she was concerned. So obviously, like, that is a thing. Like she was talking about Chinese women that are like that, mostly when it comes to older white guys. So that, I think that's sort of the difference. Like if it's a younger white guy, it's less likely that the Chinese woman just wants his money, at least. If it's like if it's a young Chinese woman trying to get with a 35, 40-year-old dude, it's that most likely plays a part. So it's not like this isn't a real thing. It's just that to act like this is what's going on in all these instances is very disingenuous and incorrect. And even though she obviously liked younger guys, it's kind of like she felt ashamed of it in a way. Like she would, like, as I said, she was constantly asking me questions like, oh, do your parents mind the age gap in our relationship? Like, your mom must think I'm weird. You're kind of like a little boy to me. it was like obviously this is what she was attracted to, but at the same time, I guess maybe it was just like societal pressures or something, or like how society views it. It's like kind of against the grain or something to be attracted to younger men as like an older woman. Um, but yeah, I have a really bad ID photo actually. Not only was it a bad hair day, but I had a full beard at the time too, and I was only like 19, I think, when I had this photo taken of me. I looked basically like a hillbilly in it, like a 19-year-old like white trash like hillbilly or something because I have like a full beard and like my hair's all fucked up. And I remember showing her that picture one day when I was in the car with her, and she just laughed and laughed at it, and she was like, I can't believe this is you. Like, I hope you don't wind up looking like this when you're older because you're gonna, you look like an uncle here. You're gonna, when you're like an older guy, you're gonna be so ugly. And I think this probably played like a subtle role rather than a significant one, but I did get I got my long hair cut into like I got a short haircut a little over like a month and a half before the breakup happened, and it was obvious like she didn't like it. I looked a little bit less like a pretty boy without my long hair. So I think that might have contributed somewhat to her losing as like as funny or like brutal as it sounds, I think me having shorter hair during that final like month and a half or so might have contributed to her not being as horny for me, to be honest. But that's obviously not the only thing that went into it. I think, as I said, the vasectomy thing was on her mind. I think maybe too that she just wasn't well suited for like a long-term relationship. Like she get like a I think she kind of burns out of attraction for men maybe in a shorter period of time than the average woman would. And that might be too just because of like the baggage she had. She had past relationships before me where the most recent one was a guy. They broke up because he hit her, like he hit her in the face. I don't know for what exact reason. I don't remember if she told me, but she said she used to argue with him all the time. He was a Chinese guy, but he was kind of like a Chinese Chad in a way because he was a bum, like he didn't have any job, and she still stayed with him for I think 2 years or something like that. And that's something I ask myself too, like why was she willing to put up with this guy for what was it, like a 2 years or something, even though she was blowing a ridiculous amount of money on him. She said something like she basically burned through like $100,000 that her parents provided her with. Because that's another thing. She wasn't, I don't know if she was like a rich girl, but she was like fairly well off by Chinese standards because of her parents, and they provided her straight up with 100K when she first came to Canada. And not all of it, but a lot of it was burned up because she was paying the living expenses of this basically bum. Like he was he didn't have a job at least for most of their relationship, and he'd kind of just leech off of her. But she stuck around with him for a lot longer than she did with me. Uh, it could be the case that maybe if, in a different reality, if I met her when she was, as young as she was when she met him, maybe she would have, it would have lasted longer because she didn't have as much baggage. Um, or maybe it's just that she genuinely found that guy more attractive than me. It's one of those things that I'll never get a full answer to. There was a Chinese guy back in China that her parents did want her to marry, but I know that it wasn't him. That's not she. She didn't break up with me to go be with him. She made it quite clear to me that she had already rejected his offer like less than halfway through our relationship, and she was like dissing him and saying that she had no interest. She barely even knew this guy. It was like the son of this couple that her parents were friends with back in China. And she told me like she actually kind of insulted him, because you see, he's like a tradesman. He's a tradie in China, and I guess she looks down on that because, her parents are like white collar. They're a little bit more upper class types. Um, and she openly said to him something like, "Well, you just like work in construction," like, like straight up, like she kind of insulted him at one point in our relationship. Like I forget if it was in our relationship or if she said it was like a year or two ago, but she said something to him like that, where she was kind of like dissing him for just being like a trades worker. And the ironic thing about that is I was working retail. I was working minimum wage in China. Like that guy probably makes more in Chinese currency than I make here in Canada. Um, but still somehow I guess there was an exception for me. Maybe it could just be because she thought that I was eventually going to have a higher paying career if this worked out and if it lasted longer and blah blah blah. But it is still funny nonetheless. I've said before to various people online that this experience kind of reaffirmed the black pill in my mind rather than drive me away from it. And the main reason for that was just because it was obvious to me to what extent she was with me because of my looks and my height. I was like, I wouldn't say I'm like a pretty boy, but I have like a decent face. I'm like a young white guy. I have, good bone structure, as she said to me. And I still have hair at this point, so I have some, decent hair at the moment. And I have glasses now, but I didn't have glasses when I was with her. And I'm, 6 feet tall, as I said. So it was obvious to me she was, very appreciative of those aspects of me. She didn't hide that at all. So I know there's a lot of guys that they just get jack shit. They get absolutely nothing from dating apps, not even like a chubby ethnic woman. And this ethnic woman that was chubby, she made it clear to me that the reason I was getting something, yeah, it definitely was due to my looks to a good fair degree. I want to say something about getting into your very first romance as an adult, losing your virginity as an adult when you're a man. Um it's going to be there, that relationship is going to be very challenging because you're so inexperienced compared to her. It doesn't really matter too much if she's a similar age to you, or if she's a bit younger than you, or if she's older than you. It's not so much about the age gap, it's about the experience gap. Women as a whole, they are usually much quicker when it comes to getting sexual experiences, romantic experiences. Often they're like 13, 14 when they start like experimenting with boyfriends and stuff these days, at least in the West. It wasn't like that for my Chinese chick because she was telling me they were very strict in the Chinese school system when it came to like boys and girls interacting with each other and having any kind of affection towards each other. They wanted them focusing on their studies instead, and that lasted all the way until the end of high school in China. It wasn't until like college where the teachers and stuff, the staff, no longer gave a shit if male and female students were, interacting too much with each other. So yeah, she didn't lose her virginity till her early 20s herself. But by the point she was with me, because she was in her late 20s, that didn't matter so much because I think she was with three guys before me by then. Um, and women can be rather fickle, because they've been around the block, they've experienced it all before. And because they know they have more options than you, they can jump ship quite easily to another guy. There's not as much tolerance for you making mistakes or being inexperienced, and so the likelihood that your first relationship as an adult is gonna work out is rather small, I'd say. Um, there's just no way to mend that experience gap well, I think. And in regard to virginity specifically, guys, if you are like a virgin as an adult, you should really just, I'm not promoting anything like anything illegal. I'd never do that, but maybe it's time to see a lady of the night or something, if it's legal where you live, maybe you should just get it out of the way, maybe a few times even, so that you don't have these initial embarrassments like I did, because that was quite a bit soul crushing at the time. I don't care now. I've obviously, like, I know I'm much more confident now in my ability to have sex and in all that, but I kind of wish that I did this myself when before I met with the native woman, before I met this Chinese chick that I saw Lady of the Night like a few times, to just get like the initial to make sure that the first time with these women were not as, they might not have been great, but at least not as disastrous as they were. You know, you gotta it's gonna be very embarrassing your first time as an adult, most likely. Uh, unless you if you're paying for it, like this woman that this prostitute, she's had much worse experiences than, whatever, like if you can't get hard or something, or if you bust in like 10 seconds flat. It's happened before. She doesn't care. She's getting her money either way. She's gonna forget about you, and like she's probably gonna, go smoke weed or something and just forget about the entire experience right afterwards. So there's not really any consequences to that being embarrassing, like there would be if this was like your first girlfriend and you really loved her. Um, you know what I mean. And the last thing I want to get off my chest before I end this video, because it's going on really long now, is that the whole like not having a vehicle thing as an adult male. Well, for one thing, it's a lot more common these days, especially early 20s like Zoomer guys, even like mid 20s Zoomer guys. There's been multiple of those at my workplace that also don't have a car of their own. They don't have their license yet, so it's more acceptable. It's more common these days for that to happen. It's not like you're a total weirdo. It's not like just insane, like they can't believe that this is happening. I'd say I don't. You see some people talking about this like, oh, way less women are going to be interested in you if you don't have a car. And maybe that is true to an extent with some demographics of women. Like, I haven't had success with white women, for instance, so that it actually might be true for them. I don't know. But in my experience, I think the truth of the matter is not having a car isn't that big of a deal if they're genuinely attracted to you. It's only going to become an issue if like they fall out of attraction with you. Then they'll start complaining that, oh, I feel like you're a kid and I'm sick of driving you around all the time. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my fuel money. You're wasting my, you don't feel like you feel like a man baby, blah, blah, blah. That's not gonna happen. That's not like gonna come out unless like you're getting into arguments with them a lot and they're falling out. They're not as attracted to you as they used to be. And um, so yeah, if you're like in a long-term relationship and you don't have a car and trouble starts in that relationship, then it'll start to be like a big issue. But I don't think it's that big of a deal in terms of losing your virginity or getting some kind of a girlfriend. It's not a make or break kind of thing. And frankly, not having your own house, like living at your parents' place, I think is a similar situation. There might be some groups of women where that is like a no go, but it's not like a universal thing for them, I don't think. I was lucky in my situation where I had the garage. We did sleep, as I mentioned, a few times in the actual house. One of them, my mom was in the the next room sleeping, or I hope she was sleeping at least. That's, I talked about that earlier, but yeah, we could go chill in the garage and my parents wouldn't hear me out there. It's secretive in there, Maybe the neighbors might have heard something, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I was lucky in that regard, but still, even if I didn't have that, I don't think it would have been a deal breaker for her. It would have made sex a bit more awkward and we would have had to have sex less a bit, I think. But besides that, we still would have done it just in my room anyway. My parents here, then it's a little awkward or whatever. But I don't think that they certainly wouldn't kick me out or complain about that too much. I don't think because they were doing similar shit when they were my age. And so, especially with these like ethnic women too, a lot of them come from cultures where it's pretty common for families to be in the same household even into adulthood. I know that's more so the case in China than it is in the West, and pretty much the entire third and like second world is like that. So even if like it is an issue for Western like white women to some extent, it's if you're going after like more ethnic women that are easier to like attain in general anyways because anyway, yeah, with those ones at least, it's not a big deal, I don't think. And that pretty much wraps up the video, guys.